guys, so we're playing a little bit of catch up this week, or I'm playing a little bit of catch up, and I'm trying to talk about some things that have been very delayed, like Antlers was on Monday, although a lot of you pointed out it was only out for like a week at that point, so you're right, that wasn't that late. Thank you for reassuring me. But American Horror Story Double Feature is definitely late. It's been over with for so long, and we're gonna talk about it today. Of course, this includes the storylines of Red Tide and Death Valley, so we're gonna talk about it. You know by now, if you've been around on my channel for a while, how I feel generally about American Horror Story. You know, I haven't thought that there's been a good season for probably 5 years. I mean, they've been okay. There's been some okay ones in there, but it's been about 5 or so years since I've really like enjoyed a season. Also, a lot of you have gaslit me into thinking that I don't actually like American Horror Story at all, and you're probably right. I definitely don't anymore. Like, I wouldn't say I'm a fan of the show now, which is very weird because it's been around for what, a decade, and I liked it in the beginning, but I haven't really enjoyed it that much for over 5 years. So clearly I'm not really a fan of the show, I guess. Every year I try to keep an open mind, low expectations, but an open mind nonetheless. Anyway, before we get into talking about American Horror Story Double Feature, I just want to thank Casetify for sponsoring this video. I don't think Casetify has been a sponsor on this channel yet, so let's all give a nice warm welcome to Casetify as a sponsor here on the channel. I'm so honored to be working with them on this video and showing you some of my new cases. I love, love, love all of their designs. They're the only phone cases that I use, by the way. This was my old case that I had on for so long that I bought myself with my own money, and I was obsessed with it. It's an F. Scott Fitzgerald quote. So Casetify's impact and ultra impact cases such as this one are made with 65% recycled and plant-based materials. Their Chi-Tech 2.0 technology makes their cases drop-proof up to 9.8 feet, which is incredible. As you can see in this clip, I decided to drop my phone for you and show you how safe this keeps my phone. Like I said, their designs are amazing. They're some of my favorite phone case designs on the market. There's endless print and pattern options, and there's customizable ones like these, which make great gifts for your friends and family, especially with the holiday season coming up. Their cases are also 100% non-toxic and non-hazardous, including a microbial coating that keeps your phone germ-free, killing up to 99% of bacteria. So make sure you go to casetify.com/possessedbyhorror to get 15% off your order. That kind of rhymed a little bit. Okay, so season 10 of American Horror Story, Ryan Murphy decided to do double feature where we get 2 shorter stories in one season. So the first half of the season is Red Tide and the second half is Death Valley. After thinking about it for some time, I realized that this was actually probably a smart move on Ryan Murphy's part, because I think one of the things he struggles with is pacing and extending a story and putting enough interesting elements in it to make it a full season. And also he typically struggles with like ending things. So I thought, given the shorter stories, we'd be able to get a more concise and well thought out ending. And then I saw Stories, which is all short stories basically, and changed my mind on that a little bit, although I don't want to put all the blame on how bad American Horror Stories was on Ryan Murphy, because a lot of people had a hand in making that, so it wasn't completely his fault. So there will be spoilers throughout this video. It's been out for so long at this point, and I don't want to say they're going to be too severe spoilers, but I think in Red Tide I will be talking about the ending and the finale pretty in detail, so that might spoil it for you. Just an FYI if you haven't seen it yet. So let's begin, of course, with Red Tide. So this follows a struggling writer who moves to Provincetown into a house with his wife and daughter, where he discovers that there's a pill that can make him everything he's always wished to be, except there are, of course, some bloody consequences. I loved a lot of these episodes, I'm not gonna lie. I really enjoyed Red Tide. I think part of it is for personal reasons. There's 2 that are personal to me that not everyone is going to agree with, and one is that I'm a writer myself, so I personally kind of related to a lot of the characters. I like that they were all kind of different types of artists and writers, and they wrote different different things. I thought that was a really smart choice, and I liked the creative aspect to that. Another reason why I'm a little bit biased towards Red Tide is I love Macaulay Culkin. I have always loved Macaulay Culkin, and I loved his role in this so much. I think he was my favorite part of the show, which isn't necessarily a good thing, that just because Macaulay Culkin's in it means I like it. But you know, when you're biased towards an actor or you're excited about someone being in something, you tend to like it a little bit more just for the sake of their presence and participation in it. So that's kind of what happened with Macaulay Culkin. And I liked his character. I thought he was really good, and I enjoyed seeing him. Also very happy he was a bigger part in it than I thought he was going to be. I thought he was going to be just like a really small side character, but he actually had some decent like lines and dialogue and things. Another thing that I really loved about Red Tide was the concept of the pills themselves. I loved the idea and the concept of if you take this pill and you have natural talent, you'll become very successful, obviously still needing to drink human blood. I guess it's not necessarily have to be human, but that's what they crave. They become little vampires, I guess. I swear I've been seeing so many things with vampires in it lately, like Midnight Mass, obviously Red Tide. I watched What We Do in the Shadows in October, so I've just been watching a lot of vampire stuff lately. Not like all coincidental that I'm watching them all at the same time. Anyway, but I also liked the other part of the pill where if you don't have natural talent or you're just okay at something and you don't have that potential already in you, then you become these like pale people that are like a mixture of zombies and vampires. I really liked that concept, and it was a little bit predictable as to who would take it and become a pale person. I was honestly hoping that Alma, because I knew Alma was going to take the pill, obviously, I mean she did kind of early on, his daughter, and I really wanted her to become a pale person. I thought, how creepy would it be if they have like this pale person in their house and they're trying to care for it, but it's obviously not even their daughter anymore. I thought that would have been really like horrific in a way, because I did find that this was lacking a little bit of horror. I just don't feel like American Horror Story is effective in horror anymore. I think the last time horror-wise it was really effective was probably Asylum was my favorite horror-wise, but also maybe Roanoke was, you know, creepy in there with the raining teeth and stuff, so it had some elements, but it's been a while since I think we've had some really good horror in American Horror Story. So although it was a good story and concept and everything, I wanted a little bit more horror. There was more in it than previous seasons that I've seen lately, so I was happy with that, but it always leaves me wanting a little more. And then we get to the finale, and I think a lot of people had an issue with this. I don't think I hated it as much as I've seen other people hate the finale as much. Obviously, spoilers, I'm gonna talk about it for a second, so if you haven't seen it yet. So we know the daughter's taking the pills. I wasn't expecting her to become like the main antagonist in the end and like the reason her dad died. Like I wasn't expecting that, and maybe that's a good thing because it's not predictable, but I found her really insufferable. I just have this thing when girls, like little girls, are trying to be evil, it just doesn't work all the time. Like an exception to that is like Orphan, but is she a little girl? I don't know. Like Pet Sematary, the new one, absolutely hated it. I didn't think that the girl's acting was good enough to play that role, and I think that kind of applies also to Red Tide. I just did not like her character or her or anything like that. Yeah, so I didn't like that she was such a main factor in the end and like the antagonist of it all. As always, the ending felt completely rushed, and even in the good seasons, I think Ryan Murphy still struggles with this. Like even in the seasons that I really, really love, he just doesn't know how to wrap up characters or stories in a concise and like good way. I feel like he has a concept and he just dives into it and writes the episodes, and then he's like, okay, well, this is the last episode, so we have to end it now. Instead of it being or feeling intentional and purposeful of an ending, it's like, well, this is technically the last episode and I didn't really think this far along or like write the other episodes with this ending in mind, so we're just gonna wrap it up. He has to put in so many scenes to answer all of these questions about all these characters and what's gonna happen to them and all these little storylines that he's created throughout the show that were good, but the ending isn't, you know, satisfying. I honestly would have liked if Red Tide was the whole season. Like, I know I said I was excited that it was a double feature and we got a little bit of both, but after seeing Death Valley, I do wish Red Tide was the entire season and we kind of got to explore that a little bit more. Will I rewatch it? Probably not. I don't think this double feature is a rewatchable season, but I didn't hate Red Tide. I actually really enjoyed it, minus a lot of the finale. I don't think all of the finale was bad, but a lot of it. I still thought it was creative and really unique storytelling, especially for Ryan Murphy, and I was honestly really impressed with the creativity in it, so I liked it. And you know how long it's been since I've said that about American Horror Story? Like, I'm so excited that I liked it. And I didn't even love it, I just liked it, and I'm so excited. Let's talk about Death Valley. So this takes place between two time periods. Present day, where a group of friends go camping and are abducted and become pregnant, including the males, and also from around 1954 to 1972, following the different presidents of this time as they deal with the alien invasion. I actually really liked the black and white segments. I didn't think that was going to be my thing, but those are my favorite parts, I think, of this part of the show. I thought they were entertaining and kind of silly in a good way. I think Ryan Murphy does kind of like goofy stuff like that really well. That's one of his strong suits, is being, I don't know if it's not an insult. I'm not trying to insult him by saying like, oh, his horror stories are silly. But you know what I mean. It's like kind of the humor elements. A lot of that is really effective. The modern day stuff in Death Valley was just okay. It definitely wasn't my favorite. You know, when we get to Area 51 and stuff, I didn't really care about any of the characters. We didn't get any kind of time to attach to anybody or have any kind of concern or care for any of them. And I think that's another thing that Ryan Murphy hasn't done in a while, is create unique characters that you feel for, because he creates kind of characters that aren't realistic or fleshed out, are just kind of unlikable. It's been a while since I've like liked a character, you know. I think Murder House was pretty good at building characters, but I think now he's gotten to a point where he puts a bunch of characters in his show, and it's just to get from like point A to point B, and he puts in horror elements, and it's just, he doesn't spend time on the characters themselves. And that goes for Red Tide as well. I think the characters weren't really like developed enough. Again, I thought Death Valley was kind of original and unique in the sense of the storytelling, but obviously this is one of the most cliche, like stereotypical alien stories I have ever seen. I have to assume that this was camp. Like Death Valley was just like camp alien, and that it was all intentional and he intended it to be stereotypical, because why else would he use the sounds, like the alien noise, over and over and over again in every single episode? It's just like the background noise of this like woo alien noise, you know? And then why'd he have him look like that? He just has him look like literally the alien emoji. That's what they look like. I think part of it has to do with the time period it's set in, or what some of it is set in the middle of the last century, where that's probably their portrayal of aliens. And so I think it was intentional, and I see a lot of criticism for it. I didn't hate it. It just is very like on the nose alien, and I would have liked to see something a little bit more unique. Also, we'll always be mad at the fact that he decided to do an alien story in Death Valley and not wrap it up into Asylum. Why didn't you go back to Asylum at all? Like, we always connect seasons. There's always something. I honestly didn't see a connection with this one and any of the other seasons, which is weird because they're all kind of connected. But how can you do an alien story and not even bring up the fact that you threw in aliens in Asylum, which is arguably the worst part of that show or that season, and not fix it by bringing it back in some way into your modern alien story? How does that not connect? Anyway, I did really appreciate all the little odes and like mentions of conspiracy theories. I thought those were really funny that he added in, and genuinely made me laugh when I saw them, except for I feel like at some point he kind of just wanted to throw a bunch in just for the sake of mentioning them, and I don't know, to like for entertainment, like, oh yeah, the moon landing's fake and lizard people and all that kind of stuff. It just felt like it didn't have a point, like there was no purpose for it. It was just thrown in there just because it was funny. And it was funny, but it just didn't add anything to the season, and I think he could have done it in a more creative way, and I thought it was a really smart idea to include the conspiracy theories, and it was funny, but I don't know, it could have been executed better. Again, I was about halfway through the finale of Death Valley, and I had to check how much was remaining in the episode, because I'm like, this is the finale, right? He's got 15 minutes. How how's he gonna wrap this up? What's gonna happen? Like, how are we gonna finish this? It still felt like there was so much left to expand on and, you know, wrap up, and there just wasn't enough time. I honestly didn't hate Death Valley. I see a lot of people think it's really, really bad. I didn't hate it, and I don't hate this season as a whole. I think if he just changed some things in Death Valley, it would have been there. Maybe if it was a little bit more serious in tone, make the aliens a little bit more unique and like creative. I mean, they're aliens. You could do anything with them, and you decide to go with the alien emoji. So if he had changed a couple of those things, this probably would have been one of the better seasons. Both sections of American Horror Story double feature were almost there. Like, Red Tide got a lot closer to being good than Death Valley did, but they were both almost there. Like, if they just pushed it a little bit, spent time on characters and the endings, this would have been a really great season. Or just had Red Tide be the whole thing, because I thought that idea and that concept was so cool and so original, and I would have loved to see even more about the characters and the pill and the writers. I don't know. I just think that section was really good. I really liked Red Tide. Death Valley was stuff we've all kind of seen before, but put together in the way he told the story I thought was unique. So I didn't hate it. It was okay. It was all entertaining in some way. I did struggle finishing Death Valley, and it did take me a long time to watch this season as a whole. I think I just wasn't that excited to like persevere through, but having seen it all, I don't think it's that bad. And if you're wondering whether to give American Horror Story another try, if you're like me and like very skeptical of it now, this one's not that bad, and I'd recommend at least checking out the first couple episodes of Red Tide and see how you feel. Now, I have done a full American Horror Story ranking video, and I will link that up here if you want to know my official rankings. But if you're curious where double feature would fall in that ranking, I would have to put it in 5th or 6th. I can't decide if it's better or worse than Freak Show. So I'm not sure if I want to put it in 5th or 6th, but it would be about in the middle, which I think is fair. I think it's one of the more decent seasons. Again, not one that's rewatchable to me, but it's been a while since I've rewatched any season of American Horror Story for that matter. I didn't hate it. I wasn't obsessed with it, but it was entertaining, and for it being American Horror Story, I thought it was good. If it was just any other show, it would just be okay. But because it's American Horror Story, and I will literally take scraps, I will take anything that is somewhat decent, I thought it was fine. I would love to hear your thoughts on American Horror Story double feature. Which one do you prefer, Red Tide or Death Valley? I think a lot of people are gonna choose Red Tide, but if you think Death Valley's better, please tell me, prove me wrong. Leave your comments and all your thoughts down below. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.